I'm Katrina, and this is Sow and Tare, and this is the second recipe we're doing. First recipe's still going on here. Wasn't really a recipe, just kind of showing you how to do soup. But we are making potage bon Valet, which is a navy bean soup, I believe. I'm using Great Northern beans. It's a white bean soup, basically. Here's the recipe if you would like to pause it. And we are going to be limited on our beef broth. Now, if you watch the intro video, I explained this is one with cream in it. So some of the ingredients are whipping cream and sour cream. We are canning this. We are not going to put in the whipping cream or the sour cream. This is also a blended soup, so you're pureeing it, and we are not going to do that. We are going to make the soup without that, and then when it's time to eat it, you pour it out of the jar, heat it up, blend it up, add those dairy ingredients, and you'll have the same soup. So that's what we're gonna do. But we're limited. I have enough potatoes, I have enough parsnips, I have one onion. I don't like onion. This is like the only thing I use it for. It's cooked up and blended. I have enough of those. We are limited on how much broth we have. So this is made with beef broth. I've made it with other broths, mushroom broth if you're a vegetarian. You can use, I've used it rabbit broth, quail broth, lots of different broths you can use, but beef makes the best. I will insert here some photos of making the broth, and this is a very thick broth. I don't know where the pictures are of the beef ribs that I did this with, but this gives you the same idea. This is with the rabbit. You basically bake it for about 35-45 minutes at 450, 350, something like that, and then put it into a pressure cooker. You can do this on the stove for a long time too, but I put it in the pressure cooker for 3 hours and then 3 hours again using the same water, just barely cover. And this part right here, we deglaze it. This is hot, almost boiling water, and this is called deglazing. A little bit much water, but that's fine. You just want to get all of the good parts off, and having very hot water helps with that. And by getting it off, this is yummy yummy. That goes in your broth. That's where all your flavor is. So there is, this is just from the scrapings. So that is going to be added when we add our bones and water. So you cover with water just barely and add a splash of apple cider vinegar to add the acid to help draw out all of the minerals out of the bones. And once that's done, I do it for 6 hours in the pressure cooker, then put it into the refrigerator once it cools, and we'll go from there. And so what we have here is really a bone broth. Now, this has been in the refrigerator. It's fairly gelatinous. You can see it moving. Woo. The top layer is the fat. That's why it's chilled. You can, this isn't that much fat. You could cook it with the fat. I'm going to skim it off, and we can actually use that to cook something with. So you could definitely use this as fat in your cooking. So very easy to skim off once it's cooled. Now, this recipe calls for beef stock by the quart. Not by the quart. By the quart? Yeah, by the quart. So, calls for it by the quart, and which is 4 cups. So, once I skim this off, we will see how much we have. I know this is on the stove in a glass bowl. It is not on a hot element. It is a surface. All right. does not have to be completely fat-free. But we can use this in cooking something else, and that'll be of really good flavor and nutrition to whatever we're making with this. You use it just like butter in your pan when you're cooking something. All right, so 4 cups is right here. Sorry, right here, the same line. So let's see how much we got. See how gelatinous that is? Very thick, nice. Now what I'm putting this into is a, this is a pot for pressure cooker, and I'm going to be using that to make this. We're going to do the beans first and then add the other stuff later, so everything gets cooked to the right amount. Alright, there is 1 recipe. Two recipes. Now let's see what's left here. Alright, 2 recipes plus a little more than 2 cups. Now, because I am starting with dry beans and I'm going to be hydrating them and cooking them in the broth, I'm just going to add this in, and it'll maybe be a little bit more liquidy, but that is completely fine. We know we're going to have liquid in here anyway because of how the jars have to be packed for soup. It's going to be filling up halfway with solids and then put in the liquids. So this is 2.5 recipes worth of liquid, but I'm just going to do 2 recipes. Hopefully that makes sense. So, half pound white beans is what this calls for, and cover them, soak with water overnight. We're not doing that. We're just going to put it in here, into the broth, straight into the broth, and then put it into the pressure cooker for, I don't know, maybe 25 minutes, and then we'll add the other stuff and add another 20 minutes. That sounds good. And so the reason why I'm doing it this way is because I don't want to soak the beans overnight. I don't want to soak them. A lot of beans, a lot of recipes say to soak overnight, discard the water, rinse the beans, and then put it in again to actually cook. The reason for that is there's something in a lot of beans that messes with some people's digestion. I haven't had that issue, so I just don't do that. Kidney beans are the only beans I know of that actually have a dangerous thing in there that you should soak and then dump out that water. I don't remember what it's called, but there is something in kidney bean water. Really, I only use kidney beans for chili, and so I just buy the canned kidney beans because they're already cooked, they're already ready to go. I don't have to deal with that. So that's how I get around it for kidney beans, because I don't eat a whole lot of them. So other than that, I use dry beans, and this is what I do. I often will cook them in a broth. It's going to be much healthier for them to absorb, bone broth than absorb water. So there's my justification. You don't like it? Use water. All right, so half pound white beans, which means we're doubling this recipe, so we're going to do 2 pounds, not 2 pounds. We're going to do 1 pound white beans. And I'm going to put them in the pressure cooker for 25 minutes. 40 to 45 minutes is about, when I make beans to can or to eat, I do a big batch, I do 40 to 45 minutes. So a 25-minute pressure cook will get me to the point that it's definitely absorbed things, and then I can add in the other stuff so it won't be overcooked. All of that is going to cook again when you put it into the pressure canner. the point that we want to get it to before it goes in to the pressure canner is that it has absorbed the moisture, and that when it goes in here, the more moisture it absorbs for the beans, there will still be liquid left. So it won't be like a solid chunk in there once the beans have absorbed the moisture. Hopefully that makes sense. This is running a little bit high. It's almost done. And yeah, let's get to it. So one of these packages is £1, so I'm putting the whole package in. For beans, you do want to rinse them and go through them because you might find little rocks. That is something I have found. That is something they always advise. Let's even see if it's on the instructions. Let's see. Rinse and sort beans. That's what it says. So, yep. That is what it's saying. So always rinse and sort them because you don't want a rock in your mouth. All right. In case you're measuring them out, it is 2 2/3 cups, a little bit more. All right, let's put them in. All right. I did just use this for something else. Going to rinse off this because that's where the seal goes. Make sure we're clean with that. Yep, my pressure cooker's on my floor, and that is some soup that just came out of it. We're waiting on the pressure canner to be done. So this goes on here. Lock, seal, and let's set it for 25 minutes. All right, so that has 25 minutes. It's going to take longer than 25 minutes because it has to actually heat the whole thing up and then start time when the steam has released. Looks like our other stuff is ready. Going back to the other video, guys. So here I've already peeled the potatoes and parsnips. Potatoes and parsnips, if you're making this not for canning, you can totally eat the peels. When you are canning, you are supposed to peel for canning purposes, and that is to avoid really bad bacteria that can kill you if it's there. Anyway, so this is typically made peeled, and usually when I do this, I wash them really well and then make a quiche out of the peelings. And it's actually really good. But this is chop, 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 and then we're going to do the onion. Cutting board is full. Time to put it into the pressure cooker and then cut more. Time to cut up the peeled parsnips. They cut like a carrot does. It's a little bit more fibrous, a little bit harder than a carrot, and they have a fabulous smell, and I just love how they taste. You are really only going to find these in winter in the supermarkets, and I've never tried to grow them, but I definitely should because they are super tasty. And into the pot the parsnips go. All right, so it's pretty obvious to me I'm going to have to add liquid to this, but I think I'm going to do it at the end so we get some flavor cooked into these things, but it definitely is going to need more liquid. So I'm going to put this in for, let's do 20 minutes. That'll get everything at least soft. And then put it in the pressure canner. Oh, we still have to do the onion too. All right, so this calls for butter, but since you're not supposed to have any dairy, a little bit probably wouldn't be bad. But since I want to exemplify not using dairy, this is melted, not truly rendered, but you know, it's almost tallow. It's the fat from beef. Because there's beef broth in there, I think it's a good thing to use. So I'm going to use some of this. It says half cup. I'm not going to quite use half a cup. I think that's going to be a lot, but this is to saute onion in. I am doubling the recipe, but I'm using still just one onion because I don't like onion, but it does add something to the recipe. So, there we go. And this has just been in the refrigerator. Now here's the unfairness of it all. I don't like onion, but they also don't make me cry. Here comes the super fast onion chop. Now I have made this with minced onion. I usually actually do, but which is just like dried, like the spice, and it works fine. But I figured I was at the store anyway. I should do it with the real one. Not that the other ones aren't real. All right, so these have been cooking for a while now. I believe they're soft enough. Cooked out the raw onion taste. Not quite translucent, but I'm going to put them into our pressure cooker. Now, I wasn't going to add any more liquid. I was going to add it at the end, but I am going to add some because I want it to at least cover it. And because this works on steam, just like the pressure canner does, I want to be able to have that. Now, salt and pepper you add at the very end anyway. I actually don't add it. I add it at the table in my own thing. But yeah, this is definitely going to need, for canning purposes, it's going to need more liquid. For not canning purposes, it might need a slightly bit more, but it's probably pretty good. Like if you're just making the soup, it's probably pretty good. But I would put some to at least cover. So I have some in the kettle right now. Alright, let's see what this will get us. Sorry, fogging you guys up probably. That's probably good. Those are floating. Let's see how much left in here. Alright, let's just go with that. And put the lid on. Close it up. Seal. And I'm going to set it to 25 minutes. I think that'll be a good number. Start. So nothing else is going to go in that before we can it. If I need to top it off with water, I will. Hopefully I put in enough that I don't have to. I don't like thinning things out like that, but sometimes you have to. Again, if it tastes too thin or something, you can always add bouillon when you're cooking it, when you're reheating it, and that'll be just fine because the bouillon will already go with the extra water. So that is next up in the canner once this load is done. And that's going to be it for tonight. Let's finish this up. Alright, there's steam. I'm releasing it from the pressure cooker. And it's going to be canned in the pressure canner once this load is out. Alright, this is done. There's steam. Alright, so I'm going to stir this each time. Make sure I get a good mixture. Hopefully get parsnips and potatoes in each scoop. No guarantee. And remember, for soups, you want half full of solids and then fill up the rest with liquids. That's a little more than half, but I think that'll be okay. Now, the thing about this recipe is it would be really nice to get equal parts of everything in each jar. It's just not going to happen. And that's something we'll just have to be okay with. Now, see how many jars it makes, and then we will divide our... We'll see how many jars this makes, and we will divide how much whipping cream we need to add to each of them once it is ready for that. Oops. Well, these are a little more than half full, but it should be okay. Everything's cooked. Okay, setting the timer for 10 minutes for our lids. I'm boiling the lids. I'm using Harvest Guard lids today, which is usually what I use. Alright, here is our broth, which is pure beef broth with some added water. Now, I don't know how much of this is I have to go around, so I'm going to do 2 ladlefuls each, and then if I need to add more water, I will. And if I don't, then we'll continue. So when it gets like this, we have some solids still in there, so when you can't get a full spoonful, you gotta tilt it. You can hear that wind outside. Alright, we'll probably have enough liquid to do the rest of them. Put you guys back over there. Alright, our lids are hot. Almost done with these. We will need to add a little bit of water. Trying to get as much liquid out of here as I can. Looks like that's all the liquid I can squeeze out. We're going to add hot water. So now we have our levels. We're going to debubble. This is what debubbling looks like. Debubbling prevents bubbles. Bubbles in canning can act much like the bends in lungs if you are a diver. Bad things can happen. It can cause your seal to not work. There is a scientific explanation which I'll ask you to go elsewhere for. I used to know what video to look at, but I do not anymore. Just believe me when we say bubbles are bad. At this point, you may need to put more liquid in or take out something. Ours looks pretty okay. There's a couple that need some more liquid. All right, time for lids. All right, I put some vinegar on a towel. Going to make sure there's nothing on the rim. If you've not checked your rims for chips, now is the time to do so. You should have already done it though. Next up is lids. I'm going to take the lids out with this. I am using Harvest Guard lids, which have a separate gasket and lid, reusable, and I have found them to be excellent. Now there are some post-processing things that you need to do, which consist of just tightening it down after it has gone through the process, which I'll show. Yeah, you want to make sure these are centered. All right, so we want to make sure these are centered. If you're using the metal kind, you just need to do fingertip tight. If you are using Harvest Guard, I'm guessing Tattler too, but I've never used them. If you're using Harvest Guard, what you want to do is put your finger down in the center, press down, and go finger tight. And if it's not going down right away, go backwards until you find the end. Sometimes that's because something's wrong with the ring, and sometimes it's because things are just not lining up right. And you'll find that these will suck down before you put the ring on. The ring is a functional thing. It's a tool. It's not part of, you know, the fanciness of canning, if that could be a thing. It's a tool. When canning is done and things have cooled, you are going to take it off and store it without the ring. And we'll show that at the end. But first, let's get this into the water bath. Now, this is the third time through right now. I did add water after that first time. This one's funky here. Come on. There we go. So I will probably add some. Nope, my light went out again. Yeah, I'll add some water. All right, time to add more water. This is hot water into here. I'm gonna measure with this guy. let's get this into the pot. And actually I'm going to start heating it up. Could have already done that, but I didn't. Alrighty, we are in. Alright, lid goes on. It's locked. That's what this thing is here. And between here and here, that space should be the same all the way around. And you can adjust it if it's not, like it's a little high in the front, just give it a little tap. All the way around should be pretty even. We're a little low over there. Alright, once that's done, we're going to do these opposite, like a car tire, and do it just light first. We're going to double check our seam, and then we will tighten down. So, double check, oops, double check, looks good, and tighten. Now, this is a weight gauge pressure canner. Here's the weight. If you are under 1,000 feet, use the 10 pounds. If you are over 1,000 feet, use the 15 pounds. I am using the 15 pounds. This goes right here, just like that. 15 is on the bottom, but not yet. Okay, we have to wait until this is steaming. Once this is a steady stream of steam coming out of this, and you've already looked to make sure it's not blocked, we set the timer for 10 minutes, let it evacuate all the air, then we put this on and start. This dial is mostly, because it is not being, I'm not using this for, like, to say, yes, this is 15 pounds. I'm using this when it goes down at the end. When it goes down to 0, I know there's no pressure in there. It's safe to take this off. So, it's going to be quite a few minutes before we start seeing steam there, and then we're going to wait for a steady stream of steam, and we'll go ahead. Alright, that's a steady stream of steam. Not sure you can see it, maybe you can hear it. That is going for 10 minutes, and we'll be back. Alright, our timer just went off. We're doing 15 pounds of pressure, just like that. Now, this doesn't move, well, it will move, but you're not touching that until at the very end. So, we have to wait for the first rattle. Once that rattles, we start our time. It's 10 o'clock and I'm going to be up a while. So, once this hits pressure and it starts to rattle, we start our time. That will be for 75 minutes, which is hour 15 minutes. And once that is done, it takes about a half an hour for the pressure to come down enough for you to get stuff out. So we're looking at 2 more hours at least for this process to finish. So canning, especially pressure canning, takes a long time, and it takes longer than you think it does, because you say, oh, 75 minutes, that's not long. Well, you have to do the stuff before you have to get it in the jar. That takes time. Get it in the jar, get it in here, get this up to pressure, then you start your time. Then once the time is done, you have to get it out of pressure. Pressure comes down. Then you have to set it somewhere, make a place for them, and set it somewhere where it's not going to be disturbed for a day. 12 to 24 hours. So it does take time. What I want to do right now is, the recipe calls for a half pint of whipping cream, which is not very much. And then sour cream, you just put a dollop on top, so that's not a measurement. That's just something at serving, put a dollop on top. Salt and pepper to taste, I do that at the table. I like a lot of pepper. I don't add any salt. Other people might. You could have salt and pepper to taste before you put it in here. I just do it at the table. But half pint whipping cream. So we're gonna go with 1 pint whipping cream because I did double this recipe and it made 7 quarts of soup. There's a very small amount of solids left, so I'm just going to call it 7 quarts. So 1 divided by 7 is 1/7. So it's 1/7 of a pint. Whatever that is. Okay, a pint is 2 cups. So 1/7 of 2 cups, let's see, half of 2 cups is 1 cup. So that's 3.5. So 3.5 jars go with 1 pint. Or sorry, 1 cup. So a little more than 1/3 of a cup. Let's just call it that. A little more than 1/3 of a cup needs to go in this. This is our first rattle. We're going to start our timer. And I don't ever know why they put the timer behind. And I'm going to reduce the heat. I had it on high. It's going to end up between 5 and 6 on mine. It goes up to 10. So I'm going to put it down to just above 6. Because my stove is electric, it's going to take some time to get there. Electric stoves do not respond as quickly as your gas stove. So I learned to can on gas, and so it's been an adjustment to say the least to can now on electric, but I do have solar, so stuff is not working right now, but when it will work, it is good to do this on electric. So this should reduce, and it should not rattle the whole time. This is rattling because it's above 15 pounds of pressure. What should happen is it should rattle just a few times every minute, and your manual will let you know how many times that should be, or what the range is. Every different type has a different requirement, and so that's going to be up to you to look up for your particular pressure canner. Now again, this is a pressure canner, not a pressure cooker, and I use weight gauged. There's nothing wrong with dial gauge, except you should be getting it calibrated every single year because it does get uncalibrated. A weight is a weight is a weight, so I go this way. It's not going to change. I know what my elevation is. That's not likely to change very much, and we'll go from there. I do not use, and I do not recommend use of electric pressure canners, and I know a lot of people use them, a lot of people love them. I do not use them because I think, it's an electronic thing. How often does your phone need updating? How often does your laptop need updating? If it goes out of whack, you're not gonna know. And I don't know if people get them calibrated. I don't know how you would get it calibrated because it's electronic, not an actual, like the dial gauge you can actually calibrate. So I don't use that for that reason. Now, I did just recently have a conversation with a couple of my subscribers about electric pressure canners, and they said there was a weight gauge. So I have not looked into this myself. Make sure the weight gauge is an actual weight gauge, and you can actually confirm what weight it is, and that would compare to your elevation. So there are some up-and-coming technologies with that I am unfamiliar with, so make sure you do your own research. Now, there are electric canners for water bath canning, and that's fine because boiling's boiling. You can see it, you can hear it, you know it's boiling. But with pressure, you don't know, is it 10 pounds of pressure? Is it 15 pounds of pressure? Can you set the pressure? These are things to consider. But we're gonna let this go, and I think it might be at a good spot now. That was a little tiny rattle. And we'll see you on the other side. All right, timer just went off. We don't do anything up here. We just turn it off and wait for this pressure to go all the way down to 0. That's gonna take at least half an hour. We'll see you then. All right, so this is all the way down to 0. I'm going to, with a hot pad, not with your hand, take that off. It'll release some extra pressure. We're gonna put 2 minutes on the clock and come back. It's been 2 minutes. This has come down pressure. Time to open up. And we are going to open this facing away from ourselves so we don't burn ourselves with steam. And then hold it over for a little bit just to make the pressure go down slowly. And that steam is escaping. I probably should have the hood on, but I don't. And there we go. So, let's take a look here. It'll be bubbling. Look at that. Put it over on the towel. This soup looks a little bit similar to the other soup, so I'm going to start a new row. Just look at this bubbling away. It's amazing how long this boils for after it's come out. It will be bubbling for quite some time, or rolling. All right. Now it does look like there was siphoning that happened in here, and this one is bumped up. I've not had that happen before, but I do know what it was is I tightened it too tight. That's the only reason why that bulbs up, so I'm not going to touch that one, but this one may or may not seal. It's fine. I can eat it. And if you have metal lids, you don't have to do anything at this point. You're going to hear some pings. If you don't have metal lids and you have the harvest guard, you do need to tighten them down. And like I said, I am going to avoid that one right there just because it looks like I did it too tight. I am picking this up with a cloth from the glass part, not from the ring, not from the metal, from the glass part. And again, these are very hot, still boiling, so onto another washcloth to tighten down. Some of them will tighten down a lot and others practically not at all. That one was quite a bit. I did have some siphoning happen, so I don't know if it was that one or something happened with this one. Not a whole lot of siphoning though, so because you can't really tell. Things aren't really missing. Now these will bubble for a couple more hours, and 12 to 24 hours after is when you should check them, and we will show you guys that tomorrow. All right, it's the next day. We're going to take off all of these bands, and once the band is off, you want to be able to pick it up from the lid. So I'm not touching any glass right now. And if you can do that, that's good. I leave it out another day or two after that passes, just to make sure, and then label them. You can wash them so that they don't have food particles on the outside if there was any siphoning or anything like that, and then put them away. So I write labels on this part of the lid right here. You can put an actual paper label on it. They make labels that melt in water. All sorts of options. I use a Sharpie. And Sharpies, you can wash that off pretty well with alcohol. So just like regular rubbing alcohol. Now, if any of these are not sealed, then you want to put them in the refrigerator, consume them, or recan them. And you want to do that within, 24 hours. So if it didn't seal, you want to make sure if you are going to consume it, that you consume it when it's safe to do so. Now, when I label these ones, because this is the Potage Valet, it is a good idea to label it with adding, it's just less than 1/3 of a cup of whipping cream. Honestly, I think if you just add 1/3 of a cup of whipping cream, it's fine. But I would put that on the label and go from there. Now, if things don't seal, you want to know why. Was the ring on funky? Was the lid on funky? Was it just a kind of unexplained thing that, maybe there was too much pressure or something? This one had a domed, if you remember, this one had a domed lid, and it looks like it sucked down. So let's see if it is. Yep, it's sealed. Now, I am going to consume this one first, just because I know it had a kind of a funky thing, but it is sealed, it is safe to eat. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed these videos, and I have a lot more canning videos. I'll put a link right here to the canning playlist. I think it's actually food preservation playlist, and you can find out all sorts of stuff there. And thanks for watching. Share it around, hit that like, subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, and we will see you next time. Thank you. Have a wonderful day.